Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord God of Israel. In Jesus' name. Amen. Now, as Israel have done since the time that they came out of Egypt, we will have the reading of the law. We're going to start in Exodus, the 20th chapter. Read verses 1 through 17. Okay, go ahead.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children until the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Let's go into Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter. Read verses 13 and 14.
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Now let's go into Revelation chapter 22. Read verses 14 and 15.
Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh the lie.
Now that's the law, sisters and brothers. If this law was read every Sabbath day, then a lot of our behavior. But sisters and brothers, this is Black History Month. You know, and I always says, when it come down, since we're going to have a Black History Month, we may as well do some Black history. But this is the time, but the Lord calls me to put this together. And for the next 5 weeks, we will deal with Black history. And we're going to deal with it in certain titles. Because all of the history, sisters and brothers, that we know is slave history. We don't know about the great people that was before us, our ancestors. And when we start talking about some great African leader, we find out, sisters and brothers, we're going to show you that all blacks are not the same. They're not the same people. You have Shemites and you have Hamites, and we're going to look at some of that today. But being that our history starts at the shores of America, I say that is not history, not just slave history is not history. We want to know about our history, and we want to know it according to what is written. That's why the Lord called me to put together these lessons, all of these series, Black History Told by the Prophets. Black History Told by the Prophets. You might say, Brother Bowie, how can the prophets tell our history? Because the Bible, sisters and brothers, is our history. And they take our history and they cherry pick it and keep you away from things that points out people. So being that our history has been so limited, until we have to do everything, even the basics thing, to make sure that the world know who we are talking about. Now, this first leg, part 1, is about color. Why would you say color, Brother Bowie? Because you have a people out here that's saying that they are us and they are white. They are the children of Esau. They call themselves Jews. The world called themselves Jews. But sisters and brothers, Jacob had 12 sons.
Right.
And Jew is the one that come out of the tribe of Judah. But still, when we look at the people that everybody calls Jews, these people are white. So I have to do something basic like going and showing what color Israel is. And that's what we're going to start, but we're going to do it from the Bible, sisters and brothers. First thing, we're going to start this in Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we're going to look at Noah, because Noah is the one that the Lord spared, Noah and his family, when he drowned the whole world. And out of Noah's 3 sons, the whole earth is populated. Now, we're going to learn a few things on our way to learning something. But one of the greatest and best kept secrets in the whole creation is that this Bible that's called the Holy Bible is our history. Now, it deals with the whole world, it deals with other people, but it is all put forth by God through the hands of Israel, sisters and brothers. And we're going to take our time and look at it. Because I tell you something, sisters and brothers, we don't do sound bites. We do history. We do the Word of God. And God is the one that called it all. And what's so strange about it, everybody say they serve God, but don't nobody want to read his book. Or you go in there and read something that fits you. But we're going to deal with this black history. But first we start with the sons of Noah. Because Noah actually is the father of everybody on this side of the flood. We're going to start it in Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Because this is black history told by the prophets, not black history told by Bowie, the prophets. So if you wanted to be told by the prophet, then you have to read the words of the prophets. So Moses is the one that wrote this Genesis, and we're going to start at verse 1. Go ahead.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Go ahead.
And unto them were sons born after the flood.
Now these are 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. If you didn't come out of one of these 3 guys, you don't exist. Go ahead and read.
The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Rephath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elishah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families in their nations.
Now, you have heard it said that if you ain't a Jew, you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. That is an error, sisters and brothers. Gentiles are the people that came out of Noah's son Japheth.
That's right.
Or some people call him Japheth. Though he is the father of the Gentiles. Well, who are the Gentiles then, Brother Boer? Europeans are what the world calls white people. Those are the Gentiles. The children of Japheth. Anybody else? They come out of one of the other sons. Now we're going to deal with another son. Go ahead and read.
Verse 6. And the sons of Ham.
And the sons of Ham. Go ahead.
Cush and Mizraim and Phut and Canaan.
Now the sons of Ham. Cush and Mizraim. You know who Cush is? Ethiopia. Ham's oldest son. Greeks look at the Cushites and say, these people have burnt faces. And they come from the word Ethiop, from which came Ethiopia. And then you had Mizraim. Gentiles look at them, so these people are black. What's the word black mean? Egypt, sisters and brothers. That's what Egypt means, black. Ethiopia, burnt face. Go ahead and read.
And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah and Saptah and Raamah and Saptachah. And the sons of Raamah, Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth.
Now, we naming the Hamites now, sisters and brothers. Like Cush, you know, you've seen Nimrod, out of Cush came Nimrod. People look at, when the movies they show on Nimrod, you got a powerful white guy. But no, he's a Cushite, which means Nimrod was an Ethiopian.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
That was the end of 8.
In the end of 8, skip down to verse 10. Verse 10 and go ahead.
In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar.
Now, the original Babylonians was black, sisters and brothers. The original Babylonians. Go ahead and read.
Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah.
Now, you heard about the great city of Nineveh. The people that Jonah wasn't going to prophesy to until the Lord had him thrown overboard and consumed by a fish and thrown up. Why? Because the Ninevites really did a hard job on Israel. In fact, they are the Syrians. In fact, the Assyrians are the one that took out the northern tribe of Israel. So these are Hamites also, come out of Noah's son Cush, which is named Ethiopia. Go ahead and read.
Verse 12. And reason between Nineveh and Calah, the same as a great city.
Now those are all the Cushites. Now here come Mizraim, which is Egypt. Go ahead and read.
And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Ananim, and Leabim, and Naphtuim, and Pathrusim, and Casalim, out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim.
Now, out of whom came Philistim? You seen the movie with David, the Israelite out of the tribe of Judah, and then you saw the big giants go live, Philistim. When you showed it on TV, you saw a little white guy against a big white guy. It's altogether different. It was a little black guy against a big black guy because the Philistines, out of which came Goliath, came out of Egypt, Mizraim. We're talking all black here now. Go ahead and read.
And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, in Heth.
That
was in.
Now, we're going to skip now to verse 20, and go ahead.
These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations.
These are the sons of Ham. These are the ones that are called, that the world called Africans. Okay? Go ahead.
Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japhet, the elder, even to him were children born.
Now this is Shem. This is the one that we came out of, sisters and brothers. We're not going to read all of this. I just wanted to read enough to give you a foundation of who we are dealing with. Right now, except for the children of Japhet, everybody we read about were black folks. So now, what about Shem? Out of Shem came Abraham and Isaac and our father Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel by God, sisters and brothers. So we're going to go to our father, and we're going to deal with it, because the only way we know how to show color, who is who and what color the people are, is to compare ourselves to other people. And that's what we're doing right here with the Israelites. Now we're going to go into Genesis, the 37th chapter, and we're going to start it about Jacob, which is Israelites, our father, sisters and brothers. See, the Lord set this thing in order, and can't nobody change it. I don't care who write what. We're going to show you, if you stick this whole series out, we're going to show you that everything that has ever happened to us was already written, down to the smallest thing. Genesis chapter 37, and we're going to start with Jacob and his sons. 37 and 1. 37 and 1. Okay, read it.
And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren.
Go ahead.
And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives.
Now, so Jacob was living in the land of Canaan at that time. Who is Canaan? Ham's 4 sons, still black folks. So now, Jacob was there with all his family, and then he had Joseph, one of his youngest, close to his youngest son. He had one younger than him, but he was always snitching on his brothers, always bringing a bad report on them. They didn't like him. Keep reading.
And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children.
Go ahead.
Because he was the son of his old age.
So that's when that is bad when you make a difference in your children, because I'm going to show you the results. Go ahead and read.
And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren,
go ahead,
they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him.
So now all his brothers, except for the young one, Benjamin, hated him because his father showed favor toward him. So now, they didn't like him, and so now we're going to show you what's going to happen later on. But skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem?
Go ahead.
Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, here am I.
See, Jacob didn't know that his sons hated Joseph. So now your brothers are feeding the flock in Shechem. I want you to go down there and check on them. Joseph said, okay, I'm going to go. And let me show you what happened when they saw Joseph coming. Skip down to verse 18. Verse 18 and go ahead.
And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him.
Now, when they saw Joseph coming, his older brothers, all of them was older than him, they conspired to kill him. That's how much they hated him. But then the Lord's hand was in it. Skip down to verse 21, because the Lord always have somebody to intervene. Go ahead and read.
And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him.
Now, when his oldest brother heard them conspire against him, so he said, let's don't kill him. He come up with a plan to save his life, because he was intending to get Joseph and send him back to his father and tell him, look, don't send this boy out here no more. He might not come back. But then he didn't get that chance. But go ahead and read.
And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again.
So he said, put him in this pit. So they threw him in, and later on he was going to sneak back and get him out of there and send him home. But let's see what happened. Skip down to verse 24. Verse 24 and go ahead.
And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it.
Go ahead.
And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked. And behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt.
Now, Ishmaelites, those are the children of Ishmael. They're the people that we call Arabs today, sisters and brothers. So it's obvious they was Midianite citizens, but they was out of the nation of Ishmael, the sons of Ishmael. So they saw him coming, and look what they said. Go ahead and read.
And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood?
Go ahead.
Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh.
So now Judah come up with the idea, look, let's don't kill him, let's sell him. Because he is our brother, but they was going to kill him, but we're going to sell him. Go ahead and read.
And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit.
Go ahead.
And sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt.
Now, these Midianites, like I said, was citizens, but they was Ishmaelites, the sons of Ishmael. So they took him down to Egypt. And what did they do? Skip down to verse 36. Verse 36 and read it.
And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard.
So that's how Israel ended up in Egypt, sisters and brothers. Our first captors, our first enslavers. But he didn't, and he went down there and was sold as a servant. Now let's go into Genesis, the 39th chapter, and we're going to pursue this. Genesis 39, because Joseph was sold by his own brothers to some Arabs, and the Arabs went down there and sold him to an Egyptian. 39 and 1. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him out of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now,
the Lord was with Joseph. He was with him all the time. So this Arab sold him to the Egyptian. So the Lord started to bless Joseph, and everything that Joseph laid his hand to prospered. And this Egyptian started to like him. Go ahead and read.
And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand.
Go ahead.
And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hands.
So that's how much the Lord was blessing Joseph, because all of a sudden this Egyptian started to find out, boy, I'm increasing. Everything I got is getting better. I'm getting richer. So I'm going to put everything under him. But then in the meantime, this Egyptian wife was looking at Joseph. Skip down to verse 7. And this probably happened to a whole lot of us when we brought here slaves. Somebody, master's wife, looked at a guy, and he was in trouble. If you go with it, you're in trouble. And if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. So we're going to show you this. Skip down to verse 7 and go ahead.
And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me.
And that's what she wanted him to sleep with her. But what did Joseph say? Go ahead and read.
But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wanted not what is with me in the house.
He said, my master don't know what's with me in the house. That's how much he trusts me. All he gave, all the stuff I'm handling, he don't even know how wealthy he is. All he knows is he's wealthy. I'm over everything. Go ahead and read.
And he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I.
Go ahead.
Neither has he kept back anything from me but thee.
He said, he have given me, nobody's greater in my master's house than me. And he have not kept back anything from me but you, his wife. But go ahead and read.
Because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?
Now let me know that Joseph had been taught by his father Jacob. Because he knew if he lay with this Egyptian woman, it was adultery. He said, he didn't say won't do this and sin against my master.
That's right.
He said, I ain't going to do this thing and sin against my God. That's one of the reasons why the Lord was with him. But go ahead and read.
And it came to pass as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her, or to be with her.
Now this woman was at him every day, just pushing him. But he kept refusing. And he said, I'm not going to do this. So she forced the issue one time. Skip down to verse 12 and let's see what that is. Go ahead.
And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled, and got him out.
Now I guess she caught him one time in the room and grabbed him and said, lay with me. And he got scared and he ran. But what happened is, he left his garment in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And she going to use that as a weapon against him, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 16. Let's see what happened. Go ahead.
And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me.
Isn't that something? He's the one that came in to mock him. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out.
So I screamed when he tried to molest me. So he ran, so he run so fast, so quick until he left his garment with me, like he had stripped himself. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which he spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled.
All of a sudden, this guy, his master was mad at him. And what did he do with it? Go ahead and read.
And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison.
So what his master did, he went and had Joseph locked up in prison on the word of his adulterous wife. I mean, how many times that we suffered when we was in chattel slavery because the master's wife wanted to do what she shouldn't do with one of us, and we was too scared to do it, and some of us refused and got barbecued. And the ones that did and got caught, he still got barbecued or castrated or hung. We have been under it. But now, take place now. This is not talking about Gentiles or white folk. This is talking about Hamites, black folks that we dealing with now. So she put him in prison. What verse was that?
That was the end of 20.
Go ahead and read.
But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
Go ahead.
And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it.
So now Joseph excelled in the prison because the Lord was with him. And he became the trustee. In fact, he came the top man under the one that ran the prisoner. So now, this is going to take us further, sisters and brothers. Now, just like he was in charge of the master's house, now he's in charge of the prison. So let's go into Genesis the 40th chapter and pursue this. Genesis chapter 40. Because we are going to show you how that the Lord worked this thing, and it's all with Israel, sisters and brothers. You haven't heard of stuff like this because you haven't bothered to read your Bible like this because somebody kept you hemmed up in the New Testament. Because if you mess around this Old Testament too long, you're going to run into yourself. Genesis 40 and verse 1, or verse 2, rather. Genesis 40 and 2, go ahead.
And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound.
So now Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was angry at his chief butler and his chief baker, so he had them put in jail, where Joseph was, and Joseph was over everything. So skip down to verse 6, and let's see what happened. Go ahead.
And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad.
Now, Joseph was over them, so when he came in, he looked upon them, and they were sad, because they was under his tutorage, sisters and brothers. Back up to show you verse 3 and read it to show you that they was under Joseph's tutorage. Verse 3, go ahead.
And he put them in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound.
Now Joseph was there. And so they was under his tutorage. So Joseph came in and he saw these two guys and they were sad. And he wanted to know why, because he was responsible for them. Keep reading. Verse 7, go ahead.
And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sad today?
Now, think about it. This is a guy that was 17 sold into prison, sold into slavery. Now he's over to prison. He's asked these guys, which was two of Pharaoh's officers, chief baker and his butler. He talking to them like they children. Why are you so sad? Go ahead and read.
And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you.
So they had a dream, and they was troubled because they didn't know what it meant. Because some people know that sometime a dream is telling you about what's going to happen in the future. So he said, look, God knows the answer to can interpret dream. Tell me about it. And so we're not going to deal with all of it, just enough to get to where we want to go. Verse 9, go ahead.
And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me.
Now, he went on to tell the dream, but we're not going to concern ourselves with the dream. We're going to concern ourselves with the interpretation. So skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee into thy place.
So he said now, he saw 3 branches in his dream. He said that represents 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh going to release you from prison and he is going to restore you to your position. Go ahead.
And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou was his butler.
He said, and Pharaoh going to put you back in your position. Go ahead and read.
But think on me when it shall be well with thee.
But he made a request to this guy. Now, when it get well and you back in your position and you standing there pouring the wine in Pharaoh's cup, remember me, man. That's a simple request. Go ahead and read.
And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house.
So he said, now look, man, you know me around here. I've been taking care of y'all. And I'm giving you time. Now I done answered your dream. I done told you that you was going to be restored to your position. So when you're in front of Pharaoh, remember me, man. He said, because I don't belong in here. I didn't do nothing to come here. Did the guy remember? Totally forgot it. But then 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. Let's go into 41 chapter, Genesis chapter 41. Because we want to walk this, sister and brother, because this is our history, we should be concerned about it. Chapter 41 and verse 1. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river.
At the end of 2 full years. 2 full years from what? From the time that Joseph had requested from this butler. Remember me, man, when you go before Pharaoh. So now, 2 years later, what happened? Pharaoh had a dream. Go ahead and read.
And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh.
Go ahead.
And they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river.
Now he saw 7 kine. He was talking about 7 cows came up. They was all fat and robust and healthy. And all of a sudden, 7 sick cows came up. And what happened? Go ahead.
And the ill-favored and lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke.
Now, these sickly cows ate the healthy cows, but they didn't get no better. When that happened, Pharaoh woke up out of his sleep. But then God had a message that he put him back to sleep. Go ahead.
And he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream.
So he had a dream again. Actually, with corn this time, the sick corn ate up the healthy corn. And he woke, and it was a dream. So he wanted to know what this meant. You're going to have 2 different dreams, but both of them talking about 7 and 7. So what does this mean? So he going to call in his wise people. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh.
And this have something that we're going to really show off, sisters and brothers, in the lesson that's called part 3, for the priest of God, sisters and brothers. Because God worked through his people. This whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is written by Hebrew Israelites. Not one book in this Bible is written by another nationality. I want you to understand that. Go ahead and read.
Verse 9. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day.
Yeah, 2 years later.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to make some way with Pharaoh. Oh, I remember my fault this day. What is it? Go ahead.
Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house. Both me and the chief butler, baker.
See, you was angry with me, with your servant, me and the baker, the chief baker, and you put us in prison. And what happened? Go ahead.
And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream.
Go ahead.
And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man, according to his dream, he did interpret.
So he said, look, I was in prison. While I was in prison, we dreamed a dream, both of us in the same night. And we had a young Hebrew there. That's a Hebrew Israelite, Joseph. And he interpreted our dream. Told each one of us what was going to happen to us. See, we're not concerned with the one that Pharaoh killed. We're concerned with the one that lived, the one that's talking to Pharaoh right now. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored into mine office, and him he hanged.
So he restored me to my office, but he hanged the chief baker. Go ahead and read.
Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh.
See, Israel wore beards even then, but Egyptians don't care too much about hair. When you look at him, you can see that. So what he did, you're going to go before the king of Egypt. You don't want to look offensive, so he shaved himself. And he went before Pharaoh. Go ahead and read.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it.
Go ahead.
And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it.
He said, now I heard that you can interpret dreams. And what Joseph said, go ahead and read.
And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
Now, he knew that God was working with him. So God's going to give me the answer to your dream, and I'm going to interpret it. So we're not going to get off into the whole dream. We have read some of it. We're going to deal with the interpretation. So skip now to verse 29. Verse 29. Okay, go ahead.
Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land.
So he's telling them, them 7 fat cows and that 7 healthy corn, that means that you're going to have 7 years of plenty. I mean, all the crops going to prosper. You're going to have food growing out of your ears. This is going to be what they used to call in the South bumper crops for 7 years. What verse are we?
That was the end of 30.
Go ahead and read.
And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following.
He said, now after that 7 years of plenty, now you're going to have 7 years of famine. The Lord going to bring a drought on the land. Ain't nothing going to grow. Nothing going to happen. He said, when they get through with the 7 years of famine, you're going to forget that you had a 7 years of prosperity. So you got to do something about it. This is Joseph now. The boy that was sold at 17 years old, then served an individual, and this individual wife accused him and got him thrown in prison. Now he done served in prison. And he been there for a while, and we're going to show you that. But go ahead and read.
For it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice.
He said, now it's going to be grievous, and Pharaoh, and this dream was doubled twice to Pharaoh because he wanted to make sure that this was going to happen. What verse was that?
We're in the middle of 32.
Go ahead and read.
It is because a thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass.
Go ahead.
Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years.
Now, Joseph come up with a plan to save Egypt. So why don't you get you a man that's discreet and smart and wise, and set him over some more people, and let him, while you're having all this prosperity, start to lay up stuff. Lay up food and grain for the hard time to come. Go ahead and read.
And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities.
Go ahead.
And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine.
Now, this is Joseph. You know, everybody talking about the great civilization that Egypt was. Just to think about it. You got a young Hebrew Israelite saving Egypt. He's advising Pharaoh right now. So now, let's see what Pharaoh care about good advice. Keep reading.
And that verse 37.
Let's skip down to verse 39 and go ahead. Verse 39, go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art.
So God is dealing with you, so I don't know nobody wiser. You know, you got all the answers. Go ahead and read.
Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou.
So he said, you're going to be over my house. That's all of the nation of Israel. And whatever you say, Joseph, that's what they're going to have to do. Only in the throne I'll be greater than you. But I'm going to be sitting on the throne. I ain't going to have nothing to say. And we're going to show you that later on. But go ahead and read.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt.
Now he done set Joseph. Now all of a sudden, this boy sold by his brothers is the second ruler of Egypt. And actually he is the ruler because Pharaoh ain't said nothing. He said, everything is in your hand. Skip down to verse 45. And go ahead.
And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zapnapaneah.
They always change our name when we went into slavery. You thought it was just here, right? No, it was everywhere else. Like when Daniel's, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, their name was changed from Daniel was Belshazzar, and then the 3 boys was named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They changed their name. They're going to give you a name after their God. They figure they could control you better.
That's right.
So the Egyptians gave Joseph a name after his God. Go ahead and read.
And he gave him to his wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt.
Not only did he put him in charge, he gave him a wife. And this wife is an Egyptian, a black woman.
That's right.
And so was Joseph. We're going to show you this. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Now, that means that he had been messed over for what? From 17 to 30? 13 years. And in 13 years, he was over all of the land of Egypt. He was 30 years old. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same.
So he kicked his plan into operation. In every city, while they're growing all this food, in every city they had big storage vats, you know, like you see sometimes silos now when you go in the country, full of corn and full of wheat or whatever it was, because he knew that he was going to use all of this, because he knew that the famine was coming. That's why he was prepared for it, because God showed it to him. It's just the Lord that showed us how this thing's going in, sisters and brothers. Foreknowledge is very valuable. So skip down to verse 53. Verse 53 and go ahead.
And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come.
Go ahead.
According as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands. But in all the land of Egypt, there was bread.
So now this dearth, which is a famine, when it came after the 7 years of plenty, it was not just in Egypt, it was in all lands. So Joseph saved more than just Egypt. And we're going to show you. Go ahead and read.
When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he said to you, do.
He said, go to Joseph. Pharaoh wasn't even concerned with it. Whatever he tell you, that's what you do. He's telling this to this great nation of Egyptians. Go ahead and read.
And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands.
Now, so all lands was under that famine. So all of these people from all around Egypt, they came up to Egypt to buy corn. And who was the one that was selling to them? Joseph, the Hebrew Israelite. I have some people that say, well, you know, Israel, some Egyptologists say, ain't want no people in Egypt down there, no Hebrew Israelites in Egypt. They was never in Egypt in captivity. And no Joseph. Well, the Lord have a way of playing a trick on people that misuse history. Brothers, I want you to show me a corn that they found in Egypt and see who was on it. Put it on screen. What is that? That is Joseph. Do he look white? You mean he don't have no blonde hair? And read what the image say up here.
This is an image of Joseph that was found on a corn in the land of Egypt.
That's strange, huh? He wasn't down there, but this is genuine artifact. I didn't find it. Go ahead and read.
According to the article, the back to the corn had images of wheat and corn named Joseph, Viceroy of Egypt.
Joseph, Viceroy of Egypt. This corn exists. They found it, sisters and brothers. So much for the Egyptologists that Joseph and Israel was not down in Egypt. Because this is your history that they fooling around with. So they don't care about messing it up. So now, that's our proof. Joseph was there, and then Joseph sent and got his own people, sisters and brothers. Let's go into Genesis, the 42nd chapter. Genesis 42. Because we got proof, sisters and brothers, who that we can point out, brother, that who look like what. We don't have to go on conjecture. And I believe. We deal with matters of fact, sisters and brothers. 42:1. Go ahead.
Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do you look one upon another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence. that we may live and not die.
Now Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, that's why you might read Jacob and Israel interchanged. He was saying to his son, look here, why y'all sitting here looking at one another? Get on down to Egypt. I don't heard that there's corn in Egypt. Get on down there and buy some corn so we won't die from this famine. Because it said that the famine was everywhere, even in the land of Canaan. So what happened? His brothers went down. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren.
Because he was scared that he might come up missing like Joseph came up. Because that was Joseph. See, these guys, Joseph had a brother by one of the wives. The whole 12 was built up out of 4 women, sisters and brothers, the whole 12 tribes of Israel. And Joseph and Benjamin came out of one tribe. So he said, no, I don't want you to send him down. He might come up lost too. Go ahead and read.
For he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him.
Go ahead.
And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came. For the famine was in the land of Canaan.
Go ahead.
And Joseph was the governor over the land. And he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth.
You know, Joseph had already had a dream that they was going to do this. So when they came before him, they bowed down to him, and they didn't know who he was. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them.
Go ahead.
And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him.
I guess a man could change a whole lot from 17 to 30, can't he?
Right.
But he looked like the Egyptian, so he was and he was over Egypt. How would you ever imagine in your own mind that you would set a Hebrew Israelite over Egypt? And if he was white, like the people that painted it, then them guys would have been thinking, now we white, and he white. Look here, man, we the same folks. No, but they didn't see that.
That's right.
Joseph looked like the people that he was working for, the Egyptians. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come.
He jerked his brothers around. Go ahead and read.
And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come.
This is his older brothers, calling him my Lord, and on their knees in front of him. We just come to buy some land. We ain't no spies. Go ahead and read.
We are all one man's sons. We are true men.
Go ahead.
Thy servants are no spies.
Now, but Joseph still was ragging him. He knew they wasn't, but I guess he said, look, I'm going to kind of at least tweak them a little bit for what they did to me. Read verse 12. Go ahead.
And he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come.
No, y'all come to spy out the land, to see that we're up against it. That's why you here. And then he did something. I'm going to throw this verse in. Read verse 17. And then what he did, verse 17, he locked them up. Read it.
And he put them all together into ward 3 days.
Now, he locked him up for 3 days. Now, they sitting there, locked up, but he was monitoring to them, and he heard them talking. Skip down to verse 21. Because, when you done did something wrong, sisters and brothers, sometimes your faults come back on you, don't they? Boy, if I hadn't done this, I'm getting paid for what I did wrong. And this was the conversation that his brothers was having. Verse 21, go ahead.
And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us.
See, look, we saw our brother, how much anguish was on him. His own brothers selling him. And we just ignored him. That's why this come up on us. Go ahead and read.
And Reuben answered them, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child? And you would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required.
And he said, I told y'all not to do this. Now, they figured was dead. He was dead. He says, now, this blood is required, and we're going to pay for it. Go ahead and read.
And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter.
Now, that Joseph played it out, didn't he? He wouldn't speak to him. He had an interpreter. He was a Hebrew Israelite. He understood the language because he was 17 when they sold him. But he let them think that he was an Egyptian. So they didn't know that he understood every word that came out of their mouth because he used an interpreter. So after a while, Joseph got through jerking them around, had them locked up, and had the young brother brought up and all kind of stuff. Finally, Joseph revealed himself. Now let's go into the 45th chapter of Genesis. I guess he got tired of jerking his brothers around and said, okay then, I'm going to let them know who I am. Genesis 45 and verse 1. Genesis 45 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried,
go ahead.
Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. So
Joseph was the viceroy, just like he said. He was in charge of Egypt. So he cried out, I want all of y'all to get out of here. He said that to the Egyptians. What they do? They vacated the premises. Think about this. This is a young Hebrew Israelite. They vacated the premises. And now we're going to look at it. He was 30 years when he was put over Egypt. Then you had 7 years, then famine, a good time, and 7 years of famine. So that's 30 times 14. How many years is that? They couldn't have a clue who he was. Because the last time they saw him, he was 17. Mm-hmm. But he cried out, said, get out of here. Go ahead and read.
And he wept aloud. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard.
Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Does my father yet live?
What happened? Go ahead.
And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence.
What? Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt.
They knew it was him then, didn't they? Because he told them what they had done to him. I'm Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But they thought he was an Egyptian. Go ahead and read.
Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life.
So Joseph told him about the bigger picture. What you did was the hand of God. He sent me down here to save lives. Not only the life of the Egyptian, your life and all the lives of all these people around when he bring in that big famine he's going to bring on the land. Skip down to verse 9 and read it.
Haste you and go up to my father and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God has made me Lord over all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not.
He said, now go and tell my father that God had made me Lord over all Egypt. God is the one that did it, brothers and sisters. Because sometimes God give you talent that you don't know about it, and you exceed, then everybody wants you to work for them. So it was with Pharaoh. So he said, now go and tell my father, I am running Egypt right now. I'm the man. Come on down here. Skip down to verse 28. Verse 28 and read it.
And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die.
So that's how Israel got into Egypt. He said, I'm going to go down here and see him before I die. Eventually, Jacob did die in Egypt. But before he died, he made Joseph swear unto him that he would not bury him in Egypt. I want to be buried in the land of Canaan, where I have, where your mother's grave at. Now let's go in the 50th chapter of Genesis. And we're going to make some observations here. 50th chapter of Genesis. Now, he's telling Pharaoh, look, let me go and bury my father because he made me swear to do it. 50 and verse 5. Genesis 50 and verse 5. Go ahead.
My father made me swear, saying, Lo,
go ahead.
I die. In my grave, which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan, there shalt thou bury me.
Go ahead.
Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again.
Now, they loved Joseph because Joseph had saved everybody. So let me go up and bury my father. I'm going to come back. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father, according as he made thee swear.
Go ahead.
And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt.
See, Joseph was a big man. He didn't go up there by himself. All the elders of the house of Egypt went up. It was a great crowd of Egyptians and Israelites together. Go ahead and read.
And all the house of Joseph and his brethren and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen.
Go ahead.
And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company.
So it was a whole lot of people went up together, Israelites and Egyptians. Go ahead and read.
And they came to the threshing floor of Atad,
Go ahead.
which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation.
Go ahead.
And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan.
So when the Canaanites saw all this great big mourning, they said, This is a great mourning of the Egyptian. That's why I call it Abel Mizraim, which means the mourning of the Egyptian. Why didn't they say this is a great mourning of the Egyptians and the Israelites or the Hebrews? You know why? Because they all look the same. They all look the same. The Israelites and the Egyptian was together. Let me show you a picture of some Egyptian. Why don't you put up King Tutankhamun, his throne room, and his grandmother. Tutankhamun's throne room and his grandmother. Look at this side up here, sisters and brothers. This is Tutankhamun here that they call King Tut. Who does he look like? This is his throne room. How much white do you see on it? And this is his grandmother, Queen Tai, King Tutankhamun's grandmother. She looked like she could be any one of our grandmothers, don't she? What color are they? They're black, sisters and brothers. These are the people that we look like. Even during the time, sisters and brothers, that when his brothers was trying to deal with him, they didn't know that he was an Israelite. They thought that he was an Egyptian. Now, we look just like the Egyptian. How is it that we look so different now? I'm talking about we. I'm talking about the other people. Now let's go into Exodus, the first chapter. Exodus, the first chapter, because we're going to bring in Moses' era. Exodus chapter 1, and we're going to start reading at verse 1, because they're going to let you, all of the nation went down in, Israel, in Egypt, all of the nation of Israel. Verse 1, go ahead and read.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob.
Go ahead.
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls.
So these were the whole nation of Israel, all 12 of the sons. And Joseph was already there. Keep reading.
And Joseph was already in Egypt.
Go ahead.
And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation.
So now as time passed, Joseph died, all his brothers, and that whole generation, and the years passed. And let's see what happened. Go ahead and read.
And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly.
So we can have some babies. Woo. I mean, we can have some babies. And we didn't start just now. They were fruitful And they increased abundantly. Go ahead and read.
And multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty.
Uh-huh.
And the land was filled with them.
All of a sudden, Egypt was full of Hebrew Israelites running around. They had gave them the land of Goshen. I guess that filled up so now they didn't start creeping over the whole land. But go ahead and read.
Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Uh-huh.
And he said unto his people,
Go ahead.
Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
Go ahead.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them,
Uh-huh.
lest they multiply and it come to pass that when they falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So this king come up, he didn't know Joseph. I guess he didn't care about Joseph. I don't see how they could have forgot him, but we're talking about years now. Because Israel was down in Egypt 430 years. So he said, now look, these people are all over the place. They're mighty enough, and if we get in a war with somebody, they're going to side with our enemies and get away from us. They didn't want them to leave now because they was good, cheap labor. Even before they put them in chattel slavery. Go ahead and read.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses.
Oh, so who built these cities? Israel built these cities. Your ancestors. Go ahead and read.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel.
They don't understand the poorer we get, the more children we have. The harder time get with us, we ain't got nobody but our old lady, so we get to making more babies. That characteristic is still with us. You know, the people that's poorer than everybody else got more mouths to feed than everybody else. We still laugh, sisters and brothers. But skip down to verse 15. That didn't help. So Pharaoh come up with another plan. Let's see what this plan is. Verse 15. Go ahead.
And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
Now, you know who's a midwife? These are women that go around delivering babies. I know, because I was delivered by a midwife. Kate Smith, never forget it. There's no doctor come in there and do me. Kate Smith, a midwife. She's the one that brought me out. So what she said, look, if you have a daughter, save her alive, but if you have a son, kill him. Why kill the male? Because the male carry the seed. If you wipe out all of the males, you wipe out the nation. Because the man carry the seed. So now, if you kill all of the Israelites and saved all the males and kept all the women, then when the Egyptian had a baby by the Israelite woman, the baby was Egyptian. People always saying, well, you know, I'm half this and I'm half that. Who is your daddy? So-and-so, so-and-so. Well, you all of him. If you plant a seed on good ground, corn, what's going to come up? Corn. If you plant it in sand by the seashore, what's going to come up? Corn. If you plant it in your window flower box, what's going to come up? Corn. Because the man carried the seed. So Pharaoh wanted to wipe out the whole nation of Israel. Go ahead and read.
But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive.
Look, sisters and brothers, this Gentile has done a lot of damage to us, sisters and brothers. But he didn't devise a plan, I don't think, to wipe out the whole nation. Children of Ham wanted to do that to the Egyptians. Just think about it. But the midwife wouldn't roll with it. So what did he do? Skip down to verse 22. Verse 22 and read it.
And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
Now, since the midwife wasn't doing it, think about it. These women having babies, sisters and brothers. And you got your neighbors and everybody looking over your fence. If you got a male, all of a sudden the soldiers come in and get him. and they throw them in the river. That's the Nile River. You ever look at the Nile River, see them big crocodiles they got in there? They fed real good off the males of Israel, sisters and brothers. You just think about it. Off the males of Israel. And I know, and I'm talking about us, our forefathers. This is one thing that we didn't pay no attention to. Out of the 70 souls that went down in Egypt, don't you know there was only, other than the wives of the 12 apostles, among their children, grandchildren, there was only 2 girls, and they had 53 males unmarried. So where did he get these women that they grew this great big nation out of? From among the Egyptians, sister and brother. Now, if they was white, and they kept laying with Egyptian women, which was black, I figure in 430 years wouldn't be no white left in them, would it? We done bred it all up out of them. That's where they got the wives from. But anyway, when they went down there, they said, look, kill all of them. But, and it got to the point, and this time was when Moses was born. This is when Moses come on the scene. Let's go to Genesis, the 2nd chapter now. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. You know, Moses that everybody talk about, every time I see Moses, he's white. My mother and father, I remember them going, you know, they're long dead. You know, you have to be long dead if I'm 80 years old. I went to one movie. I remember them going to one movie in their lifetime, and it was called The 10 Commandments. And I saw it, everybody in there was white. Egyptian was white, Moses was white. Because that's the only movie, I remember them, only movie that I knew that they went to. Because, you know, everybody want to know about the religious thing. But the only problem is they didn't know that everybody was whitewashed. So here comes Moses. Exodus 2:1. Go ahead and read.
And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
Now, she hid him 3 months, but they kept watching her. After a while, somebody going to get you. So what did she do? Go ahead and read.
And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink.
Now, she couldn't hide it no more, so she made a little bitty boat, about big enough for a baby, put him in it, and laid him in the flags at the river's brink. That means close to the Nile River, probably in the shallow water, where the flags were in the weeds there. Go ahead, and what happened?
And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him.
Now, his sister Miriam watched him and see what was going to happen with him. Go ahead and read.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side.
Go ahead.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child. And behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children.
Now, this is Pharaoh's daughter here. She went down there, and she had her maids bring the thing. When she opened it up, it was Moses crying. Said, this is one of the Hebrew children. We got to give him to the alligators.
I don't think so.
That's what she's supposed to do, because her father had a law out. All the males, cast them in the river. But what happened? Go ahead and read.
Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?
Isn't that something she saw? This woman had failed for Moses. So she said, can I go get a nurse that she nurse the child for you? What did she say? Go ahead.
And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it.
So now, she couldn't raise him on her own, but she could raise him under the protection of Pharaoh's daughter. Who gonna kill Pharaoh's daughter's baby? But in order for them to know, to think that was Pharaoh's daughter's baby, what must he have looked like? Black, just like the Egyptian. Go ahead and read.
And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
So now once he grew and got wings, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Go ahead.
And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water.
So the Pharaoh's daughter is the one that named the greatest prophet that Israel has ever had. Moses. You know, I got grandchildren, sisters and brothers. They're too big now. But I remember in the old days, I used to have them sometime, and I'm sitting behind the pulpit, and they sitting on my lap. Sitting behind the roster, and people complaining, you shouldn't have your grandchildren up there. Hey, they're my grandchildren. I had compassion for them. I bet you many times that Moses sat on Pharaoh's knee. Because he didn't just pass for an Egyptian, he passed for Pharaoh's grandson. A guy that he was trying to kill. If he looked like the people that call themselves Jews today, can you imagine what he would say? Hey, where'd you get this baby from? No, daughter, you must have been smoking something. I ain't going with that. But he looked just like him. So what are you going to do? He's going to keep him. What verse were we?
That was the end of 10.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren.
Now, Moses knew who he was, like that 10 Commandments act like he discovered who he was when he was grown. He knew who he was because his mother raised him until he was weaned. She told him. So now, he went out there and saw an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew Israelite, so he did what a lot of people will do. Go ahead, what did he do? Go ahead.
And he looked this way and that way.
See, that's what I'm talking about now. He's looking around to make sure ain't nobody watching him. And then what did he do? Go ahead and read.
And then when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
So when he saw nobody around, he killed him because he beating up his brother. Moses, a prophet of God, he was a reactionary too. He killed this guy. But what happened? Skip down to verse 15. Verse 15. And go ahead.
That when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses.
So we heard about it. Who did he hear about it? Had to hear from a Hebrew Israelite. Because the next week Moses went out and he saw 2 Hebrew Israelites fighting. And he said, why are you brothers doing that? So the one that was beating the other one up, he cast him away. Said, what you going to do? Who made you a king, a ruler over us? You going to kill me like he killed the Egyptian? Moses know then, Israel know about it, the whole world knew about it. He took off. And when Pharaoh found about it, he sought to kill Moses. Go ahead.
But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well.
Now the Midianites, they are Hebrews too because they are one of Abraham's children. Black folks. Go ahead and read.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
Go ahead.
And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock.
See, apparently these shepherds would wait till them women draw the water, then they come up and muscle them out and they water their livestock. But this time Moses was there. And when they come and mess with them women, Moses jumped them, drove them off, and he watered their flock for them. So apparently Moses was a gentleman too. But go ahead and read.
And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that you are come so soon today?
He ain't used to them going out and coming back soon because they draw the water, the shepherd was taken, and they had to wait till all the shepherds get through watering their flock, being that they were just a flock of women. Once the men got through, then they watered their flock. So that took time, but this time they came back soon. So how is it you come back soon today? And look what they said. Go ahead.
And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
An Israelite dressed in Egyptian clothing.
No, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
Why did they think he was an Egyptian? Because he was black like the Egyptian. And apparently he had clothes on. Now, if he would look like one of the other people with Egyptian clothes, they would have said, well, you know, a white guy, whatever they called him in those days, in Egyptian clothing. They said an Egyptian delivered us out of their hand. Go ahead and read.
And also drew water enough for us and watered the flock.
Go ahead.
And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man?
Go ahead.
Call him that he may eat bread.
Let this man and help you. Go call him and so he can eat with us. Go ahead.
And Moses was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter.
So he ended up marrying one of them women. But skip down to verse 23 and go ahead.
And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died. And the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried. And their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage.
So the Lord heard them cry, sisters and brothers. So now he's going to let Moses know what he wanted him to do. So let's go into Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Exodus 3rd chapter, and start at verse 1, 3 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb.
That mountain is also called Mount Sinai, sisters and brothers. So he was keeping the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, and he went around before Mount Sinai. Go ahead.
And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush.
Go ahead.
And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, while the bush is not burnt.
Now God got his attention because this bush was on fire, it wasn't burning up. So he said, I want to go and see why. Go ahead and read.
And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses.
Go ahead.
And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground.
Go ahead.
Moses said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Go ahead.
And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
So Moses knew then that he figured, I'm in trouble now. But go ahead and read.
And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows.
So as I done heard my people, so I got a task for you to do. I want you to deliver my people. But you know, Moses didn't go easy, sisters and brothers. But he said, I want you to go. Skip down to verse 10 and read it.
Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
He said, I want you to come. Now I'm going to send you back to Egypt. And I want you to deliver my people. I want you to bring them out. And Moses, he didn't want to go. Moses made up all kind of excuses. Let's go into the 4th chapter of Exodus. Exodus chapter 4 and start reading at verse 1. Go ahead.
And Moses answered and said, But behold, they would not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, The Lord has not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand?
Go ahead.
And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it.
So the Lord letting him know, giving him, look, I got power to do these things. He made the rod in his hand, he made a snake out of it. And when he turned to a snake, Moses took off. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand.
So it became a rod again, but he's still going to have to show him some more. So because Moses was hard to convince. Skip down to verse 6 and read it.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom.
Put your hand in your bosom. Go ahead and read.
And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
Now, if Moses was white, leprous means white, sisters and brothers. This is what people don't understand. There are two types of leprosy. There's clean, unclean leprosy where you got boils and sores. And there's clean leprosy where you just simply white all over. Now he said, put them on your hand in your bosom. And when he took it out, he said it was white as snow. That's why I used snow Because the snow is white, ain't it?
That's right.
Now, if I'm white, I put my hand in there and I brought it out. Maybe I might have a little...
dirt on it.
No, it ain't suntan. Maybe it might turn a little lot whiter. So what? If I go out and get me a little sun, I can fix that. But if I put my hand in it and bring it out white, wait a minute. I got me a problem here.
That's right.
God was showing him that. What verse?
That was the end of 6.
Go ahead.
And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
These are not, I want you to do this. Put it back in there. He did. When he brought it out, it was black again. That's just like his other flesh. But skip down to verse 19. Verse 19, and go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go, return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. And
the same thing God said about Jesus.
Right.
When he would bring him back. He said, return to Egypt. Everybody's trying to kill you, they're dead. That Pharaoh that tried to kill you, he is dead. Go ahead and read.
And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass. And he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go.
Now let you know, when you make a debt with God, you got to pay. Them Egyptians killed all of them male Hebrews. God was not going to let them get away with that. Other scripture, he'll let you know, he said, look, he ain't going to listen to you, Moses, that I might lay my hand on Egypt. Because he said, hey, he ain't going to listen to you. Go tell him, but I'm going to harden his heart.
That's right.
That he can't listen. That's his mind, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord.
Go ahead.
Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
What did he mean, my son, even my firstborn? Because the Lord adopted Jacob and gave Jacob his name. Israel is one of the Lord's names, sisters and brothers. So when you adopt somebody, you don't let them retain their present name. You give them your name, don't you? So he said, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Firstborn, yes, because the Lord is going to adopt all of the sons of Noah and Adam. But in the time appointed, the way he want to do it. And he's going to use the hand of Israel to bring all of them back to him. And we're going to show you that if you continue to watch this series, sister and brother. So he said, he is my son, even my firstborn. He's talking about he adopted a nation. That's what God adopted nations, sisters and brothers. And look what he said. Go ahead and read.
And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me.
Go ahead.
And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn.
And God was not playing with Pharaoh, because he was mad at Pharaoh. You done killed all of the males of my people in a certain generation. It's just like Moses and Jesus are the only ones that when they die, a whole generation dies.
That's right.
There was nobody in their nation. They age. So God said, hey, if you don't let my son go, I'm going to kill your son, even your firstborn. And once he had run 10 plagues on Egypt and destroyed Egypt, then he did that. He killed his firstborn, the firstborn of all of Egypt. Let's go and look at it. Let's go into Exodus, the 12th chapter. Exodus chapter 12. I'm just letting you know how the Lord operates. People don't understand. God get even with people. That's why Jacob's brother, Joseph's brother was reasoning. Look
right.
Here, God is trying to pay us for what we did. But they didn't do nothing. But God is the one that orchestrated that. They didn't do a wicked thing. They thought they was doing something wicked. But the Lord had it all set up by making Jacob show favor so his brother would hate him. The worst thing you can do with your children is show one of them that you love the other one more than you do them. What they're going to do, they're going to hate the child. They should hate you. But they're going to hate the child. You're the one that's showing favor. but the child is going to have to suffer the brunt of it. So now, Exodus the 12th chapter, Exodus chapter 12, and this is when the Lord is going to bring to pass what he told Pharaoh what he was going to do, because he had brought 10 plagues up on him. And this is the last one. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
That he had brought 9 brothers, and this is the 10th plague he's going to bring up on him. He said, now this is going to be the beginning of months. We keep these months. We keep all of these days. But go ahead and read.
It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel.
Go ahead.
Saying, in the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house.
See, I want you to tell your people now, they're in Egypt. I want every one of you to take your young sheep. You can take it from the sheep or a goat. He called it a lamb. And I want you to kill this lamb. Just enough for one household. Each household got to have their own lamb. Skip down to verse 5 and go ahead.
Your lamb shall be without blemish.
He got to be perfect.
A male of the first year.
He got to be the firstborn. That represents somebody. He had to be the firstborn, and he could have no flaw on him. Go ahead and read.
Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goat.
Go ahead.
And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month.
And
the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
And you're going to keep it up until the 14th day of the month Abib. And when the sun go down, you're going to have to want everybody to kill it. All of it. Go ahead and read.
And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it.
He said, now I want you, once you eat this blood, I want you to get the blood, eat the lamb, put it on the side post, and put it over the top when you get through eating it. Because he's going to do something here. Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night.
Go ahead.
And will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast.
Now, didn't he tell Pharaoh that I'm going to kill your firstborn?
That's right.
So he said, I'm going to come through Egypt and I'm going to kill every firstborn, man and beast. Go ahead and read.
And against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
See, people don't think God to do stuff like that. They don't have a clue who God is.
No, they don't.
Go ahead and read.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are.
And the blood shall be for you a token on your houses. Token of what? A token of your faith, sisters and brothers. People think faith started with Matthew. It is written, the just shall live by faith. That's merely your belief. So if you believe God, you put it over the doorpost. Go ahead and read.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
He said, when I see the blood. He didn't say when I see the Hebrew Israelite, when I see the righteous, or when I see the wrong. He said, when I see the faithful. That's why if you do what God said, I don't care how dirty you been, if you repent and start doing the right thing, he got an escape plan for you.
That's right.
So he said, I ain't going to smite that house. Go ahead.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
So that's why we keep the Passover every year. Because the Lord said, I want you to do this every year at the time that I want you to do it. So let's see what happened. Let's skip down to verse 29. Verse 29. And go ahead.
And it came to pass that at midnight, the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle.
So God did everything he said. He come through and fought to kill the firstborn of everything. Go ahead and read.
And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians.
Go ahead.
And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
Because every house had to have a firstborn, didn't it?
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people.
Go ahead.
Both ye and the children of Israel, and go, Serve the Lord as ye have said.
He said, I want you to get on out of here. Serve as you have said. Go ahead and read.
Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said. And be gone and bless me also.
And Pharaoh was a believer then, wasn't he? And bless me also. Go ahead.
And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we be all dead men.
Look, they didn't want Israel no more. I guess when you wake up in the morning and your firstborn is dead, you don't want to deal with the God that's dealing with that. You don't want to deal with the people that are the people of God. So Israel, we are the people of God, sisters and brothers. He chose us. But he chose us, you're going to find out later on. But we the chosen people. I asked them, what would you chose to do? They wouldn't have a clue. But you watch the rest of this series and you're going to find out what you was chosen to do. But anyway, they said, we want them out of here because if we don't, we're all going to be dead. Skip down to verse 37. Verse 37 and go ahead.
And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children.
Now, 600,000 men with the women and children. Go ahead and read.
And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle.
A mixed multitude. That means some other nations went out of there with Israel too. Whether they were slaves or not, it don't say whether they were slaves, but I know one thing. They said, we go on with the people whose God can destroy Egypt.
That's right.
Mixed multitude. We've always had a mixed multitude among us sisters and brothers. Now skip down. The verse, keep reading. Skip down to verse 40. Skip down to verse 40 and go ahead.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
Now, so they was down there 430 years, and the Lord sprung them, sisters and brothers. And Egypt, where's Egypt? Most people don't even understand. A lot of us don't even understand that Egypt is on the African continent. They're the children of Ham. Let's go in the 105th chapter of Psalm and look at this. Psalms 105. See, we were among the children of Ham, but we are not Hamites. The people that's called African. Like when people tell you, well, you're African American, I put it down on the paper but you know, I am a Hebrew Israelite that came through Africa to get to America. Not on my own, but I got here. Psalm 105 and read verse 1. Go ahead.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Call upon his name. Make known his deeds among the people.
So we're supposed to let people know what the Lord has done. That's what we're doing now, sisters and brothers. What he did for Israel. But skip down to verse 5 and read it.
Remember his marvelous works that he has done, his wonders, and the judgments of his mouth.
See, we don't remember them because we were never taught them, sisters and brothers. But he is the one that's did to us what's done to us. Why? Because of our misbehavior.
That's right.
But skip down to verse 16. Verse 16 and go ahead.
Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He brake the whole staff of bread.
He did that in Joseph's time, didn't he?
That's right.
Go ahead.
He sent a man before them, even Joseph,
go ahead,
who was sold for a servant.
We read that, didn't we? Go ahead and read.
Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron.
We read that. He was in prison. Go ahead.
Until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free.
So Pharaoh brought him out of prison.
That's right.
And freed him. And what did he do? Go ahead.
He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance.
Now, David was the one that was writing this. Moses didn't write this, but isn't he going over what happened in Moses' day?
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
To bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom.
Whoa! You know, all them smart Egyptians, that great nation, Who taught their sentences wisdom? Joseph, the Hebrew Israelite. Maybe somebody is smarter than somebody thinks.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
Go ahead.
And he increased his people
See
greatly.
what he called them? Esau also John and Jacob sojourned in Egypt, also in the land of Ham, and he did what?
He increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies.
Go ahead.
He turned their heart to hate his people, to deal subtly with his servants.
Go ahead.
He sent Moses, his servant, and Aaron, whom he had chosen.
Now he turned the Egyptians' heart to hate Israel. And they even treated Israel, so he sent Moses, and Aaron was with him. And what happened? Go ahead.
They showed his signs among them and wonders in the land of Ham.
They showed his signs among them and wonders in the land of Ham, sisters and brothers. But that was not the land of Israel. Let me show you who the children of Ham is. We're going to go to, what's this Zandaban Encyclopedia, Biblical Encyclopedia. I want you to put it on the phone, put it on the board, Ham. See who he's the father of. Put it up on screen because I want the people to read this. Okay, read it.
Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood.
Go ahead.
He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
So if Ham is not our father and we black, where did we come from? Israel. We were the same color, but we wasn't the same kind, sister and brother. And this is what we don't. So he had to make that clear. So the people that called themselves Jews, they was never down in Egypt as slaves. In fact, to show you what God did when Jesus was born. Let's go into Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Nobody pays no attention to this. You know why? Because ain't nobody want to tell you your story. They want to tell you his story. So if you want to know your story, you got to read it yourself, don't you? So we're reading about your history. Matthew chapter 2. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Matthew chapter 2, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. See, this is why I said Black history told by the prophet. I am not making this up. We're reading this out the book. It had happened just the way it happened because we got historic history to back it up. It's just like when the Lord called me to write the book, The Four Winds of Heaven. That told you about the Gentile dynasty down from Nebuchadnezzar down to the European Union, which is the 10 toes on Daniel's, even to the war of Armageddon and the coming of the Messiah. It's all there, sisters and brothers. You know why? Because the Lord said, I called the end from the beginning. And he wrote it down. All you got to do is read and you know what's going on. People, I don't believe it. I said, well, then that is your problem. Matthew's, the 2nd chapter, and we're dealing with Jesus now. 2 and 1. Go ahead.
Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea,
Go ahead.
in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem.
There came 3 wise men.
No, wise men.
You don't know how many it was. All you know is more than one, don't you?
That's it.
Go ahead and read.
Saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews?
Where is he that's my personal Savior?
King of the Jews.
My guide and light.
King of the Jews.
Ain't nobody telling you who Jesus really is, sisters and brothers. Where is he that was born King of the Jews? That means they was really wise
That's
then, what?
right. That's right.
Go ahead and read.
For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled.
Now, Herod was troubled. Go ahead.
And all Jerusalem with him.
Well, we'll let you know why there was trouble in the lesson slavery, sisters and brothers. Because when Herod was troubled, somebody died. So he wanted to kill Jesus. So skip down to verse 7. And he inquired of the wise men. Verse 7, go ahead.
Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared.
Go ahead.
And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when you have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also.
Herod was not interested in worshiping Jesus.
No, he wasn't.
He wanted to kill him. Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12 and go ahead.
And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way.
They went somewhere else. Go ahead and read.
And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word.
Wait a minute. He should have fled to Italy. Or France. Why are you going to send this white Jesus down
To Egypt.
to Egypt? Jesus is going to protect, are the Egyptians going to protect him? Let's keep reading.
And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
Now I want you to stay there until I tell you to come back. Go ahead and read.
When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt.
Go ahead.
And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son.
That's his second son. First one is Israel. He called his second one out of his son. But look, when he went down into Egypt, Egypt couldn't protect him because all of them was under the Roman rule. Herod was appointed king of Judea by the Romans. Let me show you. Let's go in the history book, The Great People of the Bible, page 301, and let you know that Rome ruled all of Palestine, sisters and brothers. And if he wanted Jesus, all Herod would have said, tell Rome, say, look, I got this family to run there, I want them back. And they would have brought them back post-haste. Read what it says in the history book here.
Palestine in the time of Jesus. When Jesus was born in 6 BC, Palestine had been under Roman control for more than half a century. In 63 BC, Pompey put the area under the control of the new Roman province of Syria.
Go ahead.
And in 40 BC, Rome designated Herod king of Judea, which meant nearly the whole Palestine. Herod reigned until his death in 4 BC, at which time the territory was divided among his 3 sons.
Now, so Herod was appointed by Rome, and Rome was over Egypt. So now, how you going to run a white family down among black folks and he don't be noticed? All Herod would have to do was appeal, and they would have brought Jesus back. But sometimes a picture speaks louder than words. Show me that white Jesus among the Egyptians. Put it up there. What? You think he could have hid? Herod would have had him back before he could blink, sisters and brothers. He did not send Jesus down there to be protected by the Egyptians. He sent him down there to hide him. When Mary and Joseph and Jesus went to Egypt, there was just another black family among many black families. Put the picture up again. Okay, good. How can that be mistaken? Think about it, sisters and brothers. Israelites look like the Egyptians. The Egyptians are black. But then, you know, when you see the Apostle Paul, sisters and brothers, when you see Apostle Paul, when I see him, they always talking about a little white guy with a little bald in the head, a little piece of hair here.
A flame.
Let's go and see what Paul looked like. Let's go into Acts chapter 21. Acts chapter 21. I'm just showing you, sisters and brothers, Nobody show you these things because nobody wants you to know who you are. And then they want to make you think, hey, your whole existence was servants and slaves. Israel come over here and they tell me, well, they're a bunch of dumb people. They don't look, they wasn't dumb. They just didn't speak your language. This is Paul, Acts 21. This is when the Hebrews was trying to kill Paul because they was already mad at Paul because he was teaching the Gentiles. And he taught some things that they didn't understand. And they got Paul and they was beating him, and the Romans had to come and rescue Paul. And once they rescued Paul, they had Paul in the palace. And let me show you what happened with Paul. We're going to start this at verse 37. Acts chapter 21 and verse 37. 21 and verse 37. Because Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles. And when we get to the priest lesson, we'll show you why. God is working this thing, and can't nobody change it. I don't care what you say in the churches. If you don't go according to what God have written, it is wrong. Verse 21, verse 37, rather. Verse 37. Go ahead and read.
And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek?
Now, he spoke in the Greek language. He said, may I speak unto you? Look, can you speak Greek? Go ahead.
Art not thou that Egyptian which before these days made us an uproar?
Are not thou that what?
Egyptian.
Wait a minute. He thought Paul was an Egyptian. Why did he think Paul was an Egyptian, sisters and brothers? Because he was black. He looked like the Egyptian. That Paul they've been putting on you is not the Paul of the Bible. Finish that.
And led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus.
Paul actually was a Benjamite, but he was under the banner of Judah.
That's right.
So he just used that for a thing. He told him, I'm a man that's a Jew of Tarsus. Go ahead and read.
A city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people.
So now, if Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian, sister and brother, do I have to tell y'all what color he was? Because we saw what the Egyptians looked like, don't we? Black folks, sister and brother. Like I said, in fact, the word Egypt means black. But we don't pay no attention to it. So now, why? But, you know, it's a funny thing. The Lord did not liken us to an Egyptian. He likened us to Ham's oldest son, Cush, which was later named by the Gentiles Ethiopians. And I often wondered, why did he liken us to Ethiopians? Let's go and look at that. Let's go into Amos, the 9th chapter. Amos, the 9th chapter. Amos chapter 9. We're going to read verse 7. Amos 9 and 7. Amos 9 and 7. Because when I say, hey, why did he liken us to Ethiopians? Read verse 7. Go ahead.
Are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me? O children of Israel, saith the Lord. Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Ker?
That's the way the Lord talk. Are you not after the Ethiopians? Children of Ethiopians unto me? Have not I brought you out of Egypt? We saw he brought them out of Egypt, don't we?
That's right.
So we are as the children of Ethiopians. Why then he likened us to Ethiopians? And all the afternoon we've been reading about we look like the Egyptians. I'm going to show you how wise this God is. Like I say, he called in from the beginning. He knows what's going to happen in the future. Let's go and show you why he named us. Let's go into a history book called The Last 2 Million Years. We're going to read on page 381. And we're going to read the things I have marked 1 and 2. Read 1 first.
Islamic rule.
Islamic rule. Go ahead.
639 to 1798. During the rise of the great Islamic Arab Empire, Egypt was speedily conquered by the Arabs between AD 639 and 642.
So the Arabs went in there and conquered Egypt. Go ahead.
Verse 2.
Finish. 2.
In the 7th century, Egypt has been an Arab country, a main center of Islamic life and religion.
Go ahead. So now, that's enough. Since the 7th century AD, Egypt don't belong to Egypt no more. It belongs to the Arabs, the sons of Ishmael, the Ishmaelites. So now I see why the Lord didn't liken us to Egypt. He likened us to Ethiopia because Ethiopia have never had anybody but black folks to say that I'm an Ethiopian. Think about it. You ain't never read nowhere where somebody said I'm an Ethiopian and they wasn't black.
That's right.
So now, that's why he said, are you not as the Ethiopians unto me? Now let me show you the current king of Egypt and one of the prime ministers of Ethiopia and compare them to Tutankhamun, the Egyptian. Put them on the board. Look at this now. This is Tutankhamun, the Egyptian. This is the prime minister of Egypt. Do he look like him? But look at the prime minister of Ethiopia. Do he look like us? Which look like him, don't it? So God knew that the Arabs were going to take over Egypt, and they own it right now. They even said in the news sometime, the 13 Arab states, they ain't got but 12, the 13 is Egypt's sisters and brothers. So now he likened us to a people that are never going to have anybody come among them other than black folks to say, I am an Ethiopian. But you got this Arab now, which is a long way from black, ain't he? He's the king of Egypt. Can you see how wise this God is? He let us know in advance what is going to happen, sisters and brothers. He knew that in the 7th century BC, AD, that the Arabs was going to take over Egypt and call themselves the Egyptian sisters and brothers. We didn't know it, but the whole thing is God knew it. So what he did was, he let us know, I'm going to liken you to a people that nobody but black people are going to call themselves them. And that's Ethiopia. God is a wise God. It's God of Israel.
Yes, he is.
So look, when most black preachers want to name black, show you black in the Bible, I'm going to show you where they go to. Let's go into Acts, the 13th chapter. There you see, I'm going to show you black in the Bible. That always miffed me. You want to show me black in the Bible? Everybody in there. Just about until Nebuchadnezzar came on the scene.
That's right.
Because all them people they've been interacting with, we was telling you about, black folks.
So.
Acts chapter 13. All of them go here and read this. They used to do it years ago now. They might not be doing it now. Remember, I'm a guy that's been doing into this thing for 54 years. That's a long time. But this is where they used to go. Acts 13, and we're going to read verse 1. Acts 13 and verse 1. This was in the days of Paul there. Go ahead.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul.
Now, this guy Niger, as you see, that's a black guy. Got news for you. All
of them.
Of God's prophets was black. Because they was Israelites, sisters and brothers. They was Israelites. And the Lord only dealt with Israel at that time. This is what the world don't know. And I'm going to show you. He didn't know nobody else but us. Let's go into Amos, the 3rd chapter. Amos chapter 3. But then nobody won't tell you this because this is your history. They don't want to tell you that these people that we done brought over here and enslaved and demoralized are the people that God brought his word to the earth through. They don't want to tell you that, sisters and brothers. But we ain't concerned with that. Because that's why I don't have anything against anybody, because I know that God brought us here because of our misbehavior. Didn't nobody influence what God did to us but us. And we're going to show you that before this series is out. But we're not going to say, well, you know, we are innocent and we clean, and no, we ain't. Well, you know, these people did to us. The Lord said he was going to do it to you. So if God says somebody's going to do it to you, somebody's going to do it. I showed you that when he hardened Pharaoh's heart, didn't he? Think about it. Pharaoh, we started doing Egypt, and Pharaoh wanted to let Israel go. He done brought flies on them. He done turned their water to blood. He done sent storms and sleet and killed all their crops. He didn't kill their cattle. He wanted to let them go, but God wouldn't let him. No, not yet. I got some more to collect off you. So when God says somebody's going to do something to you, somebody's going to do something to you. I'm not pleading innocent here. I'm just showing you what's happening. You all understand? Amos 3, and we're going to start at verse 1. So this is what the Lord said here. Go ahead and read.
Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying,
go ahead.
You only have I known of
Wait
all.
Wait a minute. You only?
You only.
Have I known of what?
All the families of the earth.
Have I known of all the families of the earth? What's going to happen?
Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities.
Therefore I ain't going to let you get away with nothing. Among the Hamites and among the Gentiles. Their children might do something and get a slap on the hand. You do something, you're going to go to jail and collect your felony. Now you can't even go out and get a job to make a living. Because the Lord said, I'm going to punish you for all of your sins, because you're the only one I have known out of all of the nations on the planet. Think about it, sisters and brothers. It was our forefathers that the Lord God came down on Mount Sinai and gave the 10 Commandments. Wasn't no other people there.
That's right.
Us. It was a mixed multitude, but they was under the banner of Israel.
Yes, they were.
You only have I known out of all the families. Let's back up to Hosea, the 2nd chapter.
No.
Amos, I'm sorry. Amos, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to read verse 6 and skip now. Amos, the 2nd chapter. And verse 6, read it.
Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes.
Now, we did a little dirt ourselves, didn't we? We sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. But look what he said, look what I did for you. Skip down to verse 9. Verse 9 and go ahead.
Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars.
He said, yet I destroyed the Amorite. Those are the first people that Israel knocked out when Moses was still in charge. Say, whose height was like the cedar. They were big people. Go ahead and read.
And he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above.
Go ahead.
And his roots from beneath.
I destroyed him. Go ahead and read.
Also I brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite.
Go ahead.
And I raised up your sons for prophets.
And I raised up your sons for prophets. Go ahead.
And of your young men for Nazarites.
And your young men for Nazarite. Like Samson was a Nazarite.
That's right.
He didn't do that for any other people, sisters and brothers. All of the prophets in this Bible are Israelites. All of them are black. You don't have one that's not an Israelite, sisters and brothers. You finished that?
No.
Finish it.
Is it not even thus, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord?
That's the way it is. He did it. Now I want to show you something, sisters and brothers, because that's something that took place. And we're going to show you why. Let's go into Acts, the 11th chapter. Acts, the 11th chapter. Because we're going to put something out here that the world just don't know about, sisters and brothers, and we're going to put it right out of this Bible. Because people think they know the Word of God. They don't have a clue. Because look, you had this guy Stephen, which the Israelites got in a dispute with him, and they stoned Stephen to death. And the Apostle Paul was there because he hadn't been converted yet, and he was consenting to it. They stoned him to death. So we're going to see what's going on. Okay? Let's go into Acts. And so after they stoned Paul, let's see what happened to the Israelites. We're going to start at verse 19. Verse 19. Okay, read it.
Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenix and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only.
See, then there, even after Jesus had died, Israelites didn't teach nobody but Israelites. Jews only. Go ahead and read.
And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Grecians, preaching the Lord Jesus.
Now, as a Grecian, this is talking about the Jews that had Greek citizenship. That's why the captain asked Paul, when Paul told him, he was a Roman citizen. He said, how do you become that? I had to pay a lot of money to get that. It's just like me. I'm a Hebrew Israelite, but I'm an American citizen. You understand? So now, the Greeks that they was teaching was Israelites. Skip down to verse 22 and go ahead.
Then tidings of these things came into the ears of the church, which was in Jerusalem. And they sent forth Barnabas that he should go as far as Antioch.
Now, once they heard these guys teaching, and they was converting a whole lot of people to being disciples of Jesus, sisters and brothers. And when the elders, that's Peter and James and John and all of them heard about it, they sent Barnabas to see if it was true and to strengthen them because the church was growing. And let's see what happened. Skip down to verse 25. Verse 25. Because even Paul had not been sent to the Gentiles at this time. Go ahead and read.
Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus for to seek Saul. And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church.
Go ahead.
And taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch.
Now, that's the first time that Jesus' disciples was called Christian. That was in Antioch. You know how many non-Israelites was in the church then? 0. That's why I tell people, I say I'm a Hebrew Israelite, but I believe in Christ. You a Christian? How could an Israelite be a Christian? Why not? All the original Israelites, Christian was Israelites. Jesus came in the flesh as an Israelite. All the 12 apostles were Hebrew Israelites. The apostle to the Gentile was Hebrew Israelite. We didn't get Christianity from the world. We gave Christianity to the world.
That's right.
That's why we know that what's on the market right now is not it. General Motors sent out a Cadillac, and you send him back in a Volkswagen. Well, this is what, oh, no. This is not what I made and put out there. That's why I know. How can anybody be more of a Christian than the one that was first called Christian? All of us Israelites, sisters and brothers. That's why I don't kick against being a Christian. I say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I am the original Christian. So when everybody under the banner of Christianity makes a mistake, I know every one of them, not a piece of every one. You know why? Because I put it on the market. I'm talking as an Israelite now. Because remember, they wasn't teaching nobody but Israelites. Nobody. Y'all understand? Why was they not teaching anybody but Israelites? Now I'm finna drop a bombshell on you. So if Nigel was not an Israelite, he wouldn't have been among them. Ain't that correct? Why is it that they only taught Israelites? Let's go find out. Let's go into Matthew, the 10th chapter. World ain't ready for this. And everybody here come out of somebody's church and you ain't never heard no preacher read this to you. Like this is the information of the century. And we're going to read verse 1 first, 10 and 1. And then we're going to skip. This is with Jesus and his disciples, 10 and 1. Matthew chapter 10, and we're going to read verse 1. Okay, read it.
And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease.
So when he sent out his 12 disciples, he equipped them to take care of business. But he gave them a direct commandment. Let's see what it is. Skip down to verse 5 and read it.
These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles.
Wait a minute. Who did we say the Gentiles were? Go ahead.
And into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not.
Now, why not? Why the Samaritans? Because when the Assyrians took out the 9 tribes, they brought in all kind of people, Babylonians and everybody else, and put them in where the northern kingdom was. So they wasn't Israelites either. There was a bunch of Hamites and some other Shemites. So he said, I don't want you to go into the way of the Gentile, that's the white folks. Neither do I want you to go into any other nation. Who am I sending you to? Go ahead and read.
But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is Jesus talking. He done told me, don't go over there and teach them white folks. And you better not go over there and teach them Hamites, them black folks. You go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. You know why he did that, sister and brother? Because Israel we are his priests, and we have fallen off the wagon. We was not capable of teaching anybody until we got it together. Once we got it together, later on, when the church was called a multitude, he sent Cornelius, the Italian, the first Gentile brought into the church under the new covenant. He sent him to Peter and said, you go to Peter, and he will tell you what you ought to do. But Jesus told Israel, I don't want you going to white folks. I don't want you going to Hamites. I don't want you to go into nobody but Israelites. Not Jesus, Brother Bowie. Have y'all ever heard anything like that? But did I say it or did we read it?
Read it.
That's why I know this Ethiopian was not an Israelite, was not a Hamite. Let's go into Acts the 8th chapter. People have been in church all their life and don't know that the Lord told his disciples, his 12, I don't want you teaching nobody but the Israelites. You know, when Peter went and taught Cornelius, them Italian, when they get back, them other apostles was mad at him. And Peter had to talk quick because they was getting ready to stone him. You done went in to men uncircumcised and you done taught the word of God with them. Peter said, wait a minute now, wait a minute. The Spirit made me do it. Look, and these brothers here was with me. He had to talk quick because Israel would stone you in a minute. He had to do that, sister and brother. Because the Lord had to get his house in order first, get his people in order. How are you going to teach the people that are backslidden so until they're dumb? You don't send the dumb to teach the dumb. But this is why, let's go into Acts the 8th chapter, and we're going to show you. This is why I know that this guy was an Israelite. Acts 8, and we're going to start reading at verse 26. Acts 8 and verse 26. 8 and 26. Okay, read it.
And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert.
Go ahead.
And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem for the worship.
Now, we got this Ethiopian, which is over the treasure of the queen of Ethiopia. He had this big job. So we showed Joseph, let you know we can have a big job.
That's right.
He come to Jerusalem to worship. Go ahead and read.
28. Was returning and sitting in his chariot reading Isaiah the prophet.
Go ahead.
Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him and heard him read the prophet Isaiah and said, Understandest thou what thou readest?
Now, the angel, listen to the Spirit, told him to go, and I want you to go and engage this Ethiopian. And this Ethiopian was reading, so he went and asked him, do you understand what you're reading? What he said? Go ahead.
And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him.
Now he said, how can I, except some man guide me? And he required Philip to come up and sit with him. Read a little bit more, because I want to let you know that Philip did this. Go ahead.
The place of the scripture which he read was this. He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and like a lamb dumb before a shearer, so opened he not his mouth. In his humiliation, his judgment was taken away. And who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth.
He was talking about Jesus.
Yes,
who's going to declare Jesus' generation? Because all the people in Jesus' time died just like Moses. Right. Then Philip got up and taught this guy. But remember, didn't the Lord say, tell Israel in his day, I don't want you going teaching nobody but the lost sheep of Israel? So the question is asked is, why is it that this Ethiopian was down in Jerusalem worshiping anyway? Because of the law. Let me go and show you this law. I got one more place. And in fact, this is the last place. Let's go into Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. And we're going to read this, and I got just a little bitty snippet I want to show you about a Gentile preacher. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and we're going to read one verse, verse 16. Deuteronomy 16 and 16. This is why the Ethiopian was there, sisters and brothers, because God's laws are not changed. People say they are changed. And you didn't get that teaching from no Hebrew Israelite teacher. Anybody tell you that the law ain't no more, talking about the God's commandments ain't no more? They was not taught by Hebrew Israelites. They was taught by Gentiles. And I'm not going to tell you who Paul said a Gentile sacrificed to. I'm going to be nice today. Deuteronomy 16, and we're going to read one verse. Verse 16. Deuteronomy 16 and 16. Okay, read it. 3
times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God,
3 times of a year shall all of your males appear before the Lord thy God. Go ahead and read.
In the place which he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread.
We keeps that. Go ahead.
And in the feast of weeks.
There's Pentecost. Go ahead.
And in the feast of tabernacles.
And we keep that. That's the end gathering. Go ahead and read.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
So now this Ethiopian had went down to Egypt, to Jerusalem, to worship and keep the law, because he was an Israelite that lived in Ethiopia. And all of them, see, that's what happened on the 2nd chapter of Acts, when they had the day of Pentecost. That's the Jews from all over the world came there. Wasn't nobody ever Jews, but people talking about that's when the church took over. The church is Israel. The church has always been Israel, and the church will always be Israel. You can join the church if you're one of the sons of Noah's other sons. You can be a part of the church, but we are the church. That's why Paul warned the Romans. I don't want you boasting yourself against Israel. The root bear you. You don't bear the root. You are a branch that was grafted contrary, but Israel is a natural branch. So this Ethiopian had been down there keeping the law, sisters and brothers, keeping the law. Now let me show you an Israelite that was in Ethiopia. Show me the Philasha right there, a picture of a Philasha. Now, who does that look like? You know what he called himself? Beta Israel. What's it read that up there? What's it say?
Historians see Philosophers as possible descendants from Israel's tribe of Dan. What? You philosopher? You are laughing at us.
Now that's when a white Jew come up and said that he was a Jew. You know, he said, you laughing at us. What is that?
Are there any white philosophers?
Uh-huh.
That was the way the people of Beta Israel greeted French Semitic scholar Joseph Halava upon his arrival in Ethiopia.
Now that's enough. So look at it. Look at it. Have a good look. Get the girl out of his face. That could be look at any one of y'all, couldn't it? Philasha. So that's what was down there worshiping. It was a Philasha. Philasha means stranger, because the Ethiopians gave him that name. Stranger, because they was not Ethiopians. So they are the tribe of Dan. But you had another in Nigeria. Show me these Nigerians. I'm waiting. Okay. Nigerians, what's they say?
The Nigerian Jewish claim was bolstered several years ago with the discovery in the area of onyx stone, reportedly bearing the name Gad in ancient Hebrew.
So they are Gadites out of the tribe of Gad. Who they look like? Sisters and brothers, just like this Philasha said when he saw this white guy that called himself Jews, he said, are you joking? Is there any white Philasha? No. That's why I don't like the term when somebody tell me, well, you're a black Hebrew Israelite. No, I'm a Hebrew Israelite because all of us are black. And we are God's people. I just had to show you color so you will know. Now, once we get by color, next week we're going to go to slavery. And you're going to find out that everything happened to us was written first. But I want to show you this one little snippet by a Gentile minister, and then we're going to close out. Now, thank you for being patient with me. Let's see what this Gentile minister say about us.
Let me say something right quick. I think back on the African-American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
The only people that don't know who God's people are God's people. So I'll see you next week for slavery. We have a whole lot of history to show you, a whole lot of graphs to show you. Ride this out. We got 4 more legs, because we're dealing with black history as it is, not as somebody has told us. Your history is this book, and we're going to teach it to you. Thank you for your time.
Garments we will wear when we change. Lord, I pray every day. Keep me in your way. I will change. In the twinkling of an eye, we'll be you in the sky. We'll never die. Change. Get a picture of your son.